Hello and welcome to episode number 34 of the, what are we called again? WP Café show. With me, Keith Devon, and
with me, Mark Wilkinson. Yeah, it's been a few weeks, maybe even a few months actually since we did last one. Not actually
well, I
sure.
nearly forgot the name of the show there, so
yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? But yeah, we're back to discuss some more interesting and exciting WordPress topics. Well, I hope they're interesting and exciting to you anyway, but we'll see. What have we got today?
Yes, we'll soon find out. Today we have a few different topics. So I think the first and potentially most, I don't know if exciting is the right word, but important for us is we've been doing some block development work. So we can chat about that. Related to that is the general topic of keeping up with WordPress. I might have a bit of a moan. We'll see.
That's fine.
And then also related to block development is your new plugin. I say yours. It is yours. Our new plugin built by you, which we can have a little chat about. And then the big thing in my work life these days has been some content marketing and kind of SEO stuff that I've been doing and learning about. So we can have a quick chat about that. And then you've just got one thrilling topic to end with, I think.
I have, yeah. You're going to have to wait for that one because it's...
Right, okay. We'll save that as a surprise.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, I agree. We'll leave people on the edge of their seats, as it were.
That's like what you did there.
Great. I think it's worth saying that I might have some really, really ropey internet today because I'm on a 4G hotspot thing because I don't have any broadband at the moment. So
seems all right though. It's been all right.
And it's not good for me.
We've been on calls, so hopefully it'll be all right. Seems quite stable.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll see. Good. Yeah, we'll find out. So first up, some block development. I think in a previous episode, we mentioned that we'd start. In fact, this is the case. We mentioned that we'd started a block development course. So learning how to build native blocks so that we might not need to lean on things like ACF quite as much. So we're kind of deep into that journey, that course, and I think it's been interesting. I don't.
Not just sure that was a positive or a negative interesting or
well,
a
I
neutral one.
think what I was trying to get at there is that it's a bit of both, maybe.
Yeah.
So initial. Well, let's go to you. How's that journey been for you so far?
So the good point is that it has given me a better understanding of how blocks are built. And until you've built one, it's probably hard for me to explain what that actually means. But if you have built one, I'm talking about things like understanding that you need an edit component, you need a save component, you can render a block in PHP. So I think that's called server-side rendering. Just kind of those basic concepts of like how blocks kind of work in terms of when you're building them. Because I think, well, for me, I found that quite confusing. There was lots of different people talking about different things, lots of bits of code out there, and you weren't really quite sure what they were, where they went, etc. And having some clarity over what the structure of a block should be like when you're building one has really helped. And that's essentially provided by a package. I don't know if you call it a package, something, I don't know, a package called Create Block, which I think the WordPress team provide.
Yeah.
And it's an NPM thing, I think, and then you sort of install that, and it does a lot of the setup for you. Creates all of the scaffolding of your block, so it creates the correct file structures and things. And learning how to use that's been good as well. Definitely a positive for me, that one.
Mm-hmm.
Difficulties, it's just hard. It's just really hard. And I think what I've learned is I'm not going to be able to go from not being able to build a block yesterday to being able to to be able to build new blocks in native block development that I would have perhaps used to built in ACF. It's just not going to happen overnight. There's so much more learning to do and more understanding to do than I think I ever thought, and hopefully, well, probably people think out there, I think as well. So I'm still coming away at the moment thinking, unless it's a fairly straightforward block, and your block that you built actually is a good example of that.
It makes complete sense. It was highly complex.
Okay, well, that's interesting.
No, I'm joking. It was easy.
But that makes complete sense to me to do that block, and I'm sure you'll mention it in a second, for various reasons. Therefore, you should do that. But if you've got anything that's really complicated, it's just hard to do. So certainly for now, I still won't be using a native block because I just don't have the skills to do it with.
At all, ever?
Don't know is the answer to that.
Yeah.
It seems as though, and we've asked this question and discussed this, haven't we? That a lot of the stuff that WordPress PHP world provides you out the box, you just don't have in block development, or you have it and no one knows about it because no one's telling us where it is. And things like, and as an example of that is, I can't remember ever writing an SQL query in WordPress to say, get me this data out of the database, because WordPress actively discourages you from doing that because it provides different methods for you to do that. A WP query class, functions for getting metadata and all sorts of stuff. So you don't ever need to worry about that. They don't seem to be there in the block editor. And I think the example I was using when I was building my block in the course was that I wanted to just get like a checkbox list of categories. And it appears you have to build it yourself all the time. There's nothing in there that allows me just to sort of say, I want a component, it's a taxonomy select. The taxonomy I want to put in this is my taxonomy name. And then it renders it, does it for you. There is none of that. It doesn't appear. You have to do it all yourself, which seems to me to be a bit odd that there's nothing in there that would allow me to do this, because it would standardize it for everybody. But there may be reasons I don't understand. Probably are. But that was a bit frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, I hit something. I hit a similar problem. I say problem. Like you, I'm not sure it is a problem or if there's a really good reason for it. But I was building a block where I wanted to have a heading level selector. So I knew that the heading block had that. You see it says H2 and you click on the H2 and then you click on H4 or whatever to change the heading level. So I thought, okay, I'll nip across to the heading level block source code. Which now is, it started to make a little bit more sense to me what's going on. Not complete sense. I still don't understand a lot of the syntax I'm looking at. But I can sort of start to figure out which bits I can grab and copy and paste. And then I can start to debug things to a point where I can say, okay, yeah, sorry, I haven't imported that component that I need, for example. I know how to do that now.
Yep.
So I was doing that, but then I was just expecting some kind of heading level selector component. I don't know.
Well, yeah.
I don't know why, because actually it's only used once in core. So why they would have made that any kind of component or function or whatever. It doesn't make sense to. But then for the purposes of other people, like you say, standardizing things and other people building on top, presumably the project wants people to be building third-party blocks. I mean, there's a block library, there's a block this and that.
I would assume so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's part of the project, is that there's going to be this huge ecosystem of amazing blocks. But if things like that aren't standardized at this early stage, are we just going to have a total mess of code and UI? Maybe, but then some things are standardized. There's standard components for range sliders, things like that. You can grab that as a component and drop it in, and it has attributes that you can use and configure.
And there is one for checkbox, which is the one I was sort of list of checkboxes which I wanted, but there's no standardized way of saying, populate that with known WordPress data.
Yeah.
Like, we know how categories are saved. We know how taxonomies are saved. We know where they are. We know how to get them. So surely that can be standardized. And just to say, I want a checkbox the data to be populated with this taxonomy terms. I just think that makes complete sense, but it doesn't appear to be there.
Yeah. I do wonder if this is partly just the world that, like you kind of mentioned it, the world that we've come from, where we're not computer programmers. Like, we don't have computer science degrees. We learnt by hacking, and we have relied on frameworks to be in place already to give us a massive lift. Up until very recently, relying very heavily on jQuery for nearly all of my JavaScript, relying on WordPress for most of our PHP. Like you say, SQL, you haven't really had to touch. Whereas this is probably being built by people who like to be closer to the metal, I think is what the expression is.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
My counter argument to that is, and I always thought this was the case, that we were actively encouraged as WordPress developers, theme developers, to use core functions. They were actively saying, use core functions because, for backwards compatibility and things. But they don't seem to be following that same sort of process. I don't know. I just think, if you're getting a list of taxonomy terms differently to me, who's doing it differently to the next person, because let's face it, there's hundreds of ways to do things, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
And if a change happens in the future, making everyone's code work is just completely impossible because everyone's done it differently. Whereas if everyone's just used this component that does it in this set way, you just change that, that makes more sense. But I'm not the expert. I'm sure there's reasons for this, but
no, I think part of the reason is because it's not mature. All the functions that we rely on in WordPress today didn't exist at the start. Things become standardized over time.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it's been interesting. On a positive note, I have been massively encouraged by how easy it actually is to get something simple working. So we've both built a number of blocks now. They're not wonderful. They're not very, very complex, but they work. And I just think that's a massive step forward for us. And I think this brings us on to our next point, or maybe our next point after that, is that you've just released or are about to release a little plugin which kind of isn't a block but interacts with the block editor, I guess, which is cool. I don't know if doing this course gave you the confidence to do that, or if it's related at all, but I do feel like we've opened the door to a new world, and we're kind of like peeking inside at the minute, and I'm glad we've done it.
Yeah, I suppose I don't think it had actually any bearing on it. I think because what I've done with this plugin is nothing to do with JavaScript or React or anything. It's just entirely in.
It's not, but I wonder if you would have even thought,
maybe,
to do any interact with a block at all before this. I suspect not, but
yeah. Anyway, so do you want to come on to that plugin then?
Let's talk about the plugin.
Is that a nice segue? So previously we've added our own block using advanced custom fields for what we called an advanced video block. The idea being is that when you use the standard embed block, you paste in your YouTube link, and WordPress does its own embed stuff and so forth. But what happens when the page loads on the front end, it loads all of YouTube's scripts and styles or whatever service you're using, whether it's YouTube or Vimeo or whatever, whether you've actually interacted with the video or not, which to me seems a bit crazy. Like, if I haven't actually clicked play, why do I need to load all those things? So what our advanced video block did was it allowed essentially to drop a thumbnail on the screen with a play button, and when you click to the image, then loaded all the stuff. And then I don't know, I had a sort of an aha moment and decided that why don't we just do this with the embed blocks themselves? using what's called the render block filter. So you can basically change how the block is outputted in PHP on the front end of the site. So I had a go at trying to make it work. So essentially what we do is we take the block markup that is generated by WordPress, which for an embed block looks something like a figure class with a div inside it, and inside that is an iframe, which is essentially your video. And what we do is we take that and we sort of stick it in a placeholder on the page, which essentially means it never gets loaded. So the content in there never gets loaded. The browser never even looks for stuff in there and loads it, but it's sat there just waiting to be used. And then using sort of the YouTube and the Vimeo API type things, you can grab the video ID, you can grab a thumbnail from their service, and then you can drop that on the page. A bit of CSS to stick a triangle on it and make it look like a play button. And then when you click that using JavaScript, you can then clone the sort of proper markup that was hidden on the page, and you can drop that in the block itself and delete your thumbnail image, and that's how it works. And what was really good about it is that it's kind of, I think they call it progressive enhancement, which means that like it kind of just makes it better. It doesn't matter. So if in the future you don't want to use our plugin, you can literally just switch it off, and all of your stuff will just work as it did before. It doesn't matter if you find in the future it's causing a problem or something. You can literally just turn the plugin off, and everything will just embed like it did before. Mm-hmm. Even if you're embedding something that's not supported by the plugin currently, when I've submitted it, it's doing YouTube and Vimeo. But if you're using something else, it'll just embed it as normal. So yeah, I thought it was really good, and it worked. And I was like, wow, that's quite interesting to use. Much better than having your own block to do the same thing. Because for the user in WordPress, they just do the same thing. They just paste the link in, and that's it. No change.
Yeah,
which is good.
Yeah, I like that, because we've when we've been using our like advanced video block, someone will type in video to like the block inserter, and it'll be like, should I use an embed or a video or an advanced video? And now it's just like do the normal thing, and or we'll just, like you say, progressively enhance your choice.
Make it
better. And I really like that approach. And like you say, turn it off and it keeps working. One thing I did think was really cool with your solution, and I don't know if it stayed into the kind of production version, but the use of a template tag. Yes,
that was something I picked up online. I'll find the article in a minute and tell you who it was that wrote it. So there's a HTML tag called template. Sorry, not tag. Tag, is that what it's called? Element. An element called template. And essentially, anything you put inside that template element, the browser just ignores. So it just ignores it completely. And essentially, the article was you can basically use it for storing stuff that you want to clone somewhere else at some point in the page. So this is exactly what I was doing. So the actual block markup that WordPress produces, instead of outputting on the page, we just render it inside this template tag. The browser just completely ignores it. We put our thumbnail on the page with the play icon, and then a little bit of JavaScript basically says when they click that, just go and clone that template bit and stick it where the thumbnail should be. And that's when it actually calls all the scripts and styles. Tried it in all the major browsers, Edge, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, and it works. So yeah, it was pretty good. I'll just try and find that article because it was actually really useful. I bookmarked it ages ago, and then I suddenly thought I could use it in this context.
For anyone interested as well, our previous video on our YouTube channel is Mark talking about this plugin, just describing it. So if you want a bit more detail, and hopefully it's currently being reviewed by the plugin team, so hopefully it'll be in the repo soon for free.
Hopefully,
yeah. Before I forget, let's give our lovely guests, our viewers, some attention, because we've had a few comments.
Cool.
So hello to everyone watching us live on YouTube. So Sam, I think this is when we were talking about our block course that we were doing. He says, is this a React course? It's not a React course exactly. In fact, it's not teaching React, although of course, because it deals with block development, there is React involved in it. I think that's the best answer I can give. So I would definitely not say that I currently know React, but I am definitely using React very badly.
Definitely say that I do not know React.
Yes, exactly. Hello to Joe, who says, hey, both happy to see another video. Yeah, we're happy to be back too. It's mostly been because of my internet issues, and I actually had to go down to my office, which currently has no internet or electricity, to get my microphone. So that's why we haven't been doing any shows recently. Try to get back on track with our weekly shows. Tony Gerling, he says, hi, coming to the party a bit late. Nice to have you here, Tony. Sam again. So Sam says, we used ACF to avoid writing code to create meta boxes for theme development. Would it be wrong to do the same for blocks going forward? Avoid writing code to create meta boxes would be wrong.
I think that's up to you at the end of the day, Sam. So ACF, in my experience, does a pretty good job at building blocks. Does it do what you want to do? Does it do what your client wants to do? If the answer is yes, then go for it. Why not? Could it be better? Everything could always be better, but it doesn't mean to say it's right. So I think it's worked for us. We've built many sites with ACF blocks. Clients have been happy with them. So yeah, I don't see a problem with that at all.
I agree. I think my the thing that pushes me away from using ACF for block creation is the UI. So just, I think you can create much nicer user interfaces if you do it natively, but it's also much more difficult. So it's that balance. It's that balance. So there's no right or wrong answer here. People will tell you that there is a right or wrong answer, but there isn't. And then Joe again, he says, I'm not all that familiar with block development, but to Mark's point is the idea that we should be using the REST API and the WordPress API-fetch package. I have no idea.
I have no idea either, I'm afraid. I assume that... No, I do have an idea. I tell a lie. I'm just thinking back to the course. So I think there's a concept in the block development of there is like a data store, and you can get data from the database by interacting with this data store. So essentially, it returns like REST API formatted stuff. So if I get a list of taxonomies terms from this store, they come back just like the REST API would provide them. But when I was working with it, I wasn't directly calling the REST API endpoints. You were calling, I can't remember how you do it now. It was this data store you were calling in the block development stuff. But yeah, it's similar to working with like REST to data essentially.
Yeah. Joe just adds that's for grabbing taxonomies. He's talking about it's when you were talking about getting taxonomies.
Yeah.
So and Tony writes, I'm also using ACF to build simple blocks for internal use, but concerned the licensing issues will inhibit putting them on the repo. Yeah, that is actually one fairly major disadvantage of using ACF. If you ever want to release your block, how do you do that? Because if it relies on ACF being present, I'm not sure you're allowed to bundle it. So, yep, that is a very, very good point. On to the next point. Well, we had keeping up with WordPress. So I don't want to spend too long on this, actually, because we're running out of time a little bit. But just, again, recently I've found myself struggling to really understand what's going on with WordPress, specifically the front end and how theme developers are supposed to be using theme.json and or CSS. The recent issue being block gap and how it applies spacing between elements that seems to override margins. So I can't... It seems if I enable block gap on, for example, groups or columns, single columns, then I can't control the vertical spacing between the direct descendants of those. And I'm trying to research it and trying to do some testing, and I just cannot get my head around it. And nobody's put their hands up yet to be able to tell me what's going on and what I should be doing. So if anyone knows how to control margin whenever block gap is getting in the way, then please let me know. Be very grateful for that. So just moving on then to our last kind of main topic is content marketing. and this is something I've been working on a bit recently. So as a business, we have repositioned ourselves into the recruitment website space. It's still fairly early days.
New
And
website?
within
Should have a look.
a new website, yeah. Within that space, we are completely irrelevant on Google. Google thinks that we are WordPress people because that's what we've always published. That's where all our backlinks come from. That's our topic according to Google. And so I started thinking, well, we need to start ranking for some recruitment specific keywords like recruitment website design and things like this. So I've been doing a bit of research, signed up for SEMrush to do some like competitor analysis and stuff like that. So that was all very interesting. And then I came across a new course by Brian Dean. So if you don't know Brian Dean, he is the founder of a SEO blog called Backlinko. And Backlinko was actually bought by SEMrush quite recently. So he is now producing content for SEMrush, and he has like a free SEO course, and it kind of blew me away. Like, it's one of those things that you think you have a pretty good grasp on it. Like, I know there's loads of intricacies that I don't know about, but I thought kind of the bigger picture stuff I understood. And when it came to content marketing, it's like, just write good content that your customers will really like, and all that kind of good stuff. He's like, don't write content for your customers. And I was like, what do you mean don't write content for your customers? So his whole theory, I don't know how new the theory is, but his current theory is to write content for what he calls link creators, which are the people online who actually create backlinks. So these tend to be like industry blogs, news outlets. If you can get someone from Forbes or the New York Times or the BBC to link to you, that's what you want. Because let's be honest, your customers aren't the people blogging about what you do. Like, how many of our customers or clients over the years, Mark, have written an article about us with a link to us? I would say probably zero. Yeah. So we can write as much great content for them as we like. We'll never get a backlink from them. It just won't happen. They might read it. They'll never share it. So Brian Dean's theory is that you write this content for the people that do create backlinks. And even better is if you write it for the link creators and your customers. So if it's useful for both, great. But if you have to pick one, pick the industry blogs and things like that.
So, and remind us why backlinks are important again.
I still think they're like the absolute like gold standard for SEO. Like that, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's still Google's number one ranking factor.
If people are linking to your content, it must be good. Therefore,
yeah, and obviously
put it higher in the rankings.
Obviously, it's more nuanced than that, because it's not just like, as I've proved with some of the research I've done recently, it's not just sheer numbers of backlinks. It's specific backlinks specific to that topic or that industry from authoritative websites is what's important. So I think it's probably better to have one backlink from BBC than it is to have like 50,000 from like your customers in the footer of their websites. Yeah.
So the idea being is if you've got a recruitment blog that's authoritatively writing content in that space, and Google has them as an authority, they have domain authority, and they link back to your article, backlink is like gold dust. It's like,
that's right.
These people who we already rank well are linking to you about this, this topic. Therefore, we're going to carry some of that juice over, basically. Yeah.
So I was like going through the course. It's like a video course, and it's got like worksheets and stuff. So it says like, go and find your link creators. So I went and found a bunch of recruitment industry blogs and things, and then see what they're talking about, and try to like come up with some topics and things. And then he goes into detail on different templates, like content templates. So there's things like the ultimate guide. You see those all the time online now.
Yeah.
Expanded list posts is one. And then there's one, it was basically like industry kind of like research post. I can't remember what he called it exactly. And I was like, I've already done that. I've got a post basically sitting in draft with research that took me days and days to complete that I haven't published. So I was like, I've got this already. So like, I basically stopped watching the course, jumped over to our blog, finished the blog post, published it, sent it to a few of the people on my kind of list that I'd created, and right enough, they're all really interested in it. Like most of what I published on LinkedIn gets that's like zero engagement, absolute crickets. And I was like cold, like emailing this to people, and they're all like, "Oh, that's really good. Thanks for sending it. You know, we'll include it in our newsletter or we'll include it in our blog." And it got loads of traffic. And I was just like, "Oh wow, I think this works. I think we're onto something."
I remember when you told me last week, and it was like, it's one of those moments like your face lit up a bit because it was like, how many times do you write what you think is a really good blog post and like just there's zero interest, and it's like, oh god. And this time it was like, wow, people are actually reading this. This is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the traffic's dropping off now because a lot of that initial traffic was from newsletters and things. So that'll obviously drop off, but hopefully there'll be the odd backlink out there, and it's got our name out there amongst some of the important people, some of these link creators. So next time, hopefully I send them something, they'll be like, well, the last thing was good, so this will be worth looking at.
Good. Yeah, well done. That's good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Right, I think we should probably wrap it up, really. It's half an hour in, so...
Well, you can't just leave people without telling them the big news of the week.
Oh, right, that news of the week, yeah. I've got a new chair. It's not that exciting, really. It's a good chair. I went to IKEA yesterday, and I sat in what must be like... Well, I don't know how many chairs IKEA have got, but they've got a lot. And I must have sat in a lot of chairs. And the first chair I sat in was the one I actually bought. And it's like the most expensive ones they have were horrible. They were like so uncomfortable, just like really weird looking chairs. And this one is just like, it's really nice. It's like a bit more support. I like Craig when it leans back.
Craig wants to see your chair.
Wants to see my chair. Well, I'll put a link to it in the description. It's just IKEA. I can't remember its name now. They all have weird names, don't they, in IKEA?
Yeah.
But it's not anything fancy. It's not one of these, fancy chairs. But it's really comfy, and I like it. And my other chair I can't actually work it out. I think it's either 15 or 16 years old, and the wheels are falling off. So every time I moved around the office, it just lost its wheels and ended up grinding the carpet to pieces. So, it's nice to have a new chair.
It was a bit squeaky too.
Oh, it was, yes. Yeah, because you can't hear it now, can you? That's good.
Yeah. Every time you leant back. Yeah. Right, before we go, let's give our listeners, viewers, a bit of love. There's been a few more comments. Mark says, plugin requirements are coming. You will be able to specify if your plugin requires another. That's cool. I think I'd heard that, but yeah, thanks for reminding us about that.
I think it's a feature plugin at the moment. Okay.
So I think that is in reference to what Tony was talking about releasing something that relies on ACF. Xsalams, the Google search algorithm is king. Yeah, if only we knew what it was, that would be handy. And then some love for your chair content. Tony, I'm looking for a new chair, not thought of IKEA. Yeah, loads to choose from. I've got a stool from IKEA. It's one of those weird ones with a kind of like wobbly top. And I can tell you right now, my back has never been more painful in my life. But I'm not sure if it's the chair's fault or not. So.
I've just posted the link in the chat if you ever want to look at my wonderful chair. It's not very exciting, trust me.
Right, Mark, wrap us up. Bring us to an end.
Right. Thank you very much for watching it or listening, everybody. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. And if you enjoyed listening to us rant on about this episode, please click the like button. And we will see you hopefully next week, assuming that Keith's internet's all right.
See you soon. Bye.